Looks like it's time to go to work now because see now I have a video game to speculate on. See, last Monday I was just trolling the internet being an idiot because I have the opportunity to do that. They should never give niggas anything. How about that? But seriously, now we have a game to talk about. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. And it's like, and I'm going to be honest, is that even with me making that video last Monday, because that video was more jokes than it was actual serious me speaking on something, because I just had to put my pocket change in the ring because I was just being an idiot on Monday. But now we can talk about a little bit about what we know now about Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, because when I think about the lead up to that reveal at PSX earlier, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end of this, is why doing what they're doing with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite makes all the sense in the world. So let's start where it makes sense. 2-on-2. It is the thesis of what this Versus series is built on. Because when you think about what X-Men versus Street Fighter is that was the beginning of some unholy alliance that brought us a wonderful anthology of video games. And then this does preclude versus Marvel superheroes and the game that introduced this whole cross up to it, which is probably one of the most important fighting games ever in X-Men Children of the Atom, because of the weird Akuma hard on that Capcom had at that point, because Akuma was in every damn thing. He was in NAD, he was in Cyberbots, and we can keep going on, but it makes sense all at the same time why you would also save Akuma for a reveal at the same time, because of how important he is as a Capcom character of building that bridge between Marvel and Capcom, which leads into why we have Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite now. But you might still be wondering, the reboot though, Triple? Well, here the thing is, given the current state of Marvel itself and what it is they're trying to push at you, is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because that is the big giant moneymaker. Like, yeah, comics are still being produced. Stories like that are still being told. But when people are combinedly spending billions of dollars to watch a damn movie, why would you not push the focus there? So then it makes me wonder, is really this whole X-Men No Fantastic Four shit really a thing? Because again, we are talking about a reboot to a series that was built upon games that which prominently featured X-Men characters, when the first game that technically started the series was X-Men versus Street Fighter. I don't know. Is that I understand and I get it from a business perspective. What I didn't understand a couple of years ago when Marvel vs. Capcom Origins was released, why it didn't have X-Men versus Street Fighter, Marvel Superhero versus Street Fighter in it. Because those games are very important to the growth of where we ultimately got to in Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Because again, let's go through our history really quickly. X-Men Children of the Atom. A game, for all its right and wrong, is probably one of the most beautifully animated games ever produced. Go look at Sentinel Sprite Sheet if you don't believe a word that just came out my fucking mouth right now. That game, it ain't like Darkstalkers, like Vampire Savior, Vampire Hunter levels of animation, but it's up there. They cut a whole bunch of animations to fit Sentinel in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's all I'm going to say about that. Go look at that on your own time. Marvel Superheroes. That was a game that was needed, because you needed to be able to expand outside of this X-Men thing you built by taking some of those characters, transplanting them into that game, and then expanding the reaches of what you can do. And it was great, and also trying to tell some weird abridged story of the Infinity War, so that makes sense too. That leads into your 2-on-2 versus game, which completely changed how fighting games worked with X-Men versus Street Fighter. Now, that doesn't discount any games that feature tagging before it, but That is an iconic handshake. That is a handshake that changed video games. Even though Marvel at this point is pretending Cyclops doesn't exist, when you watch that whole intro of X-Men vs. Street Fighter, and then you see Ryu coming from one side and Cyclops coming on the other, and then that hand grasp, that's legendary level shit. That cannot be dismissed, no matter how hard you wish to try. Marvel Superhero vs. Street Fighter. Given what we know about that game's development, it's a question that I've actually asked myself before, like in thought, and wondered how different that game would be if it had Iron Man and Doctor Doom in it. Because if you didn't know, Iron Man and Doctor Doom were supposed to be in Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter. But Iron Man was in that shit game of Iron Man X-O Man of War, and that game is horrible shit. You should never play it. And for some reason, Doctor Doom's rights were tied up into a very horrible PS1 game of the Fantastic Four that came out that same year. So, whatever. Then you get to Marvel vs. Capcom. Now it's Capcom's turn to see past Street Fighter and then give you more iconic Capcom characters. And Marvel vs. Capcom was accidentally purposely responsible for the resurgence of not only Strider Hiryu but Jin Saotome, because it was that game that allowed him to be a secret character in Techromancer. So you have everything that game did, and it also introduced the special assist, which allowed more expansion into more Capcom characters that could be used in the future. Jubilee is never a playable character, but yet again, see fireworks. Marvel vs. Capcom 2. For all the shit it gets for MSH and Cable and Captain Commando only being an assist character, because he is the only assist character in the game in high level play, period, is Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is, I don't know the words to even use, is that was a game that stood up for over 10 years. And it's like, yeah, it stood up for 10 years because we didn't get a game for a very long time in Marvel vs. Capcom 3. But that game has a special place in the conscience of fighting game players. And whether that's because of the game itself or whether it's because of all the nice catchphrases that Yikes came to fuck up with, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a pillar of what we call fighting games, and you can't really dismiss that for anything, even for all of its fucked upness. It's that people still today still making custom mixes and colors and doing all that shit and showing that game love. So I don't know. It's really hard to really talk about Marvel 2 because it's a game that I love so much, and I've talked about this before at length. Is that video game is a very important part of my growth because it was one of the first real games I ever wanted to be legitimately fucking good at. It was one of the first games ever that I wanted to be good at. That's what I wanted, and it's like, that game is near and dear to my heart. So it's like, it's really hard for me to say a bad word about it, but I know that the game is unbalanced as fuck. I know that. But it's still a fun game to still explore and play, so there's that. And slowly but surely, Capcom and fighting games faded away until they brought out that Kenichi game, which more people play because that game is damn good. But that's not what we're here to talk about, though. Street Fighter 4 came out, that brought us the next renaissance of the fighting game. Then we got Tatsunoko versus Capcom. The game I still believe to be the best fighting game, head and shoulders over all of the rest, because it is the game in this series that has the most heart, that has the most going for it, and has the most potential to be something in a sequel. But Tatsunoko rights are weird, and even I know that. But there are things, and I said this on Monday when I wasn't bullshitting and playing around, that there's a lot you can do with that. There's a lot that can be done with that, and I sit here and hope that even with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite out there, that whatever Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite does, that somebody decides that Tatsunoko vs. Capcom needs another try. If nothing else, a re-release that adds Hakusho Damo and then gives Capcom another character to keep the sides even. I'd be fine with that. But as long as we remember that you wouldn't have what comes after this if TVC was never a thing that somebody didn't take a chance on. Then there was Marvel vs. Capcom 3. I'm like, you sit up here and you wonder what Marvel vs. Capcom 3 would be like if there was no Ultimate. If their original plan to continue to update the game with DLC and do all of those things, what would Marvel vs. Capcom 3 would have been like with a complete DLC cycle? It's a question that I think about all the time. It's like, I have a very special place in my heart for vanilla. I do. It's like, even though that was the game that really showed me like what the hood was really about, because all that Sentinel bench had made my motherfucking head hurt. But yet and still is that I sit up here, like I said, and I will re-ask the question, is I wonder what would Marvel vs. Capcom 3 have been if it would have followed its full DLC cycle. I wonder. But we don't live in a universe where that happened. So we got Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 that fixed a lot of problems that were in Marvel vs. Capcom 3, and then in trade of trying to make a better game, made its own problems. And it was the game that people who wanted to play Marvel vs. Capcom 3 were stuck with if you were trying to play the game competitively. Not there's nothing wrong with that. And for the record, I'm going to say this because this popped in my head. Jam Session is not Captain Corridor, so internet, shut the fuck up. Yeah, I said that. Jam Session, not Captain Corridor. Captain Corridor is a better assist move. Move the fuck on, please. Thank you. I've been wanting to get that off my chest here, but yeah. But now we get to Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, which is a reboot. So again, like I said at the beginning of this, it's a thing that makes sense because you throw it back to Marvel superheroes with the use of the Infinity Gems. You kick it back to 2v2 to try to get something a little more dynamic because Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, I don't really know that because of the way TVC worked that was a game that could have worked in a 3-on-3 situation. It was a game whose mechanics you could have expanded on. And even if I love TVC the way I do, it's like only having the Giants and Hakusho Damo and Alex with snapbacks and no one else having them, that was a weird choice. But the point is now we really have to sit up here and we have to wonder, what is Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite going to be? Because with this push of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with Capcom looking like they're going to finally listen to the fans and give them what they want in a roster, we could go all day with who you want to see and why you want to see them. And I really honestly don't think that the history of the series and the way at least that this Triple the Guy speaks on went in this direction is something that this video deserves to have tacked onto it. So I won't do that. I won't at all. I know what I want to see. But the thing is I don't know like how dark I'm going to go. That's kind of the question that I got. Like, how dark am I going to go? Am I really going to go KOF 14 style dark? You know what I'm saying? And am I really going to do that and write a blog post every week about new characters and trying to break them down? Maybe. I'm like, as soon as I saw the reveal trailer, like all the thoughts went in my head about what I should do. There are things I've always wanted to do for the Versus series to celebrate it for everything that is done for us, but am I going to do that stuff? I don't know. And given my schedule and how my schedule has changed, like if they would have announced Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite around this time last year, I'd have had plenty of time to do something. But now that my time is slowly being ate up, I'm not sure what I want to do. But I know that the history of this series needs to be told by someone who has no stake in it other than helping others understand the history, because nobody else ain't gonna do it, trust me. And they ain't gonna do it in a way that I think to actually rewind that back. to give it the justice that it deserves. Because, again, like I said, we just went through the whole history of this series. Starting with Akuma and Children of the Atom and working our way all the way back to where we are now, where the series is technically starting over in Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I'm not really going to go too much into gameplay because we're going to wait till after Capcom cut. I'm going to let them do their thing, and we'll come back to this once I have footage to deal with and see and try to make those comparisons. If the series really is finna go Marvel Superheroes with the Infinity Gems, is it really finna do 2-on-2 like the game that preceded it before we got to 3-on-3 like Marvel 2? Is I want to absorb all that minutia and then speak on it. I don't want to do that before because then that's more speculation and then that makes me a fucking hypocrite. Not that I really give a fuck, but if I'm going to keep it separate and do it justice, then that's the proper way to approach and do it. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm hyped. I'm elated. I'm happy that this is happening. I'm happy that, that all you folks, y'all finna get y'all HD. Y'all finna get y'all, well, technically, is it really HD if the game was in HD? So what do you call a remaster of an HD game? I should probably Google that, but I don't even feel like reaching for the damn keyboard. But yeah, you can play Marvel 4 right now. Not Marvel 4, because Marvel 4 doesn't exist. I mean, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. You can also play G.O.D. You can also play Let It Die if you want. Because, like I said, PSX dropped a whole bunch of bombs and knowledge. I'm like, that new Uncharted look hot. They coming out a new Wipeout. You know what I'm saying? That Crash looked dumb. I'm just like, it was a lot of stuff that I saw at PSX. That shit was nuts. But I'll be back to talk about that later with Jay, along with a whole other subject that we need to get into. Won't talk about it here and now, but I like what I saw. As a person who has still have yet to make a next generation purchase or next generation buffer purchase when you talk about the PS4 Pro, is I want a PS4 because I want to play and experience those things. And speaking of, we getting Yakuza Kiwami, that's kind of sick. I'm like, building that list and an HD version of Windjammers, and I'm just like, that's too little, too late. Yeah, that's just me. That's your boy. That's too little, too late. So I don't really know what y'all gonna do with that, but I think that Windjammers thing is just too little, too late. But like I said, me and Jay will talk about this in depth a little bit once he get a chance to sit down and watch it, and we talk about other things. Ruby should be out. Y'all should be seeing that like nowish, like as I'm making this. TLC, you know what I'm saying? I had that up sometime Monday morning before I gotta go handle this business. But I think I should go play X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. I don't know why. Like, I just want to play some X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. Do not ask me why. More X-Men Mutant Apocalypse, less Marvel Superheroes War of the Gems, because that game was not as good as the first one. So there you go with that. But Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. I want to see what this gonna be. I really want to see this in action, and I really want to see like how much of the game of the internet telephone was actually right about this game. But we'll learn all about that, and we'll know before Monday, and I'll be back on the mic to spit on it. So with that being said, I am of course the one and the only the triple the G.O.D. And I'd like to thank you for joining me for another episode of Triple the Guy Speaks On. And with that, I'll holler at you guys next time, man. Peace out.